Hello, hello. I had hoped to get this video out this last week, but unfortunately I had some technical issues, aka getting viciously hacked on Facebook. So my personal profile is completely gone. My business profile is still there, but I can't access it. So I had to start a new profile just so that I could access a couple of groups that I need for my job. So annoying. Anyway, let's look at what's been going on so far. I promised that I would show you the fish sweater designed by the lovely lady at Yuha Knitting. She is located in Svalbard. Is that right? Anyway, I will have information down below. I think in my last video I had information for her Ravelry page. She is so amazing. She does great videos if you need help on actually knitting a lopapesa, which is this style of Icelandic sweater. Now, I don't have authentic Icelandic wool in this, but I do have 100% roving. And so this is my version of it. The difference is in the cuffs. I made the cuffs the exact same. In her version, she does the cuffs with a lighter color, and she also makes the cuff the same color as the neck. Now, I have to admit, this one I made for myself. I wanted to have one for myself. I honestly don't know where I'm ever going to get to wear it, because in Southern California, we have, you know, our cold weather is few and far between. However, I was starting it, and I started it with the gray on the bottom. I did an Italian Italian cast on, which creates a really nice stretchy edge. So I did that. I did a same kind of cast off, which is similar to the way you would finish socks, a Kitchener, kind of like a Kitchener stitch, although a little different. And I started in gray, and I did the same thing with the sleeves, and I realized, oh, I wanted to do it in the periwinkle blue, but that's okay. I'm not one that rips things out. I just don't. I mean, it's very rare that I do that. I'm always able to find a way to fix it. Now, if I were knitting that for someone else, although I wouldn't be knitting somebody else's design for sale, because that would be wrong, unless the designer gave me permission. So anything I knit for somebody else is always either by permission or my own design. I would definitely rip it out if I saw that I made a mistake, because that's just what you have to do. For me, I'm not going to worry about it. I always say, my grandma said that mistakes remind you that you're not God, and so leave them in. She did that on all sorts of things she made. Although you would never have known, because her work was impeccable. Whether she was sewing it or knitting it, it was absolutely impeccable. I'm glad I was able to spend time with her in my teen years to learn a lot of those great techniques that she had. The other thing I wanted to show you is the cap that I made. Now, I was following some ideas from a well-known Shetland knitter and designer. Oh my gosh, and her name goes out of my head every single time, but I will put her information below. She said when she is designing a slipover or pullover, she swatches by making a cap instead of making a square swatch, because when you're knitting in the round, if you knit a square swatch, you have two options. You can either clip the yarn at either end, and then you end up with what would probably be 2 or 3 feet of yarn if you happen to rip it out. And then what are you going to use that for? You could use it, but it's just a lot of scrap yarn to have around. Or you can use another technique where you elongate your length of yarn as you're coming back to start over again, so it appears as if you're knitting in the round. I know that's not a very good explanation, but what I will try to do is put links to some of the how-to videos of these techniques so you can see how it works. So instead of doing that, she does a cap. Now, of course, This is the Crofter's Cap from the folk art, folk vest book that I talked about last time. And I only did maybe half of the actual chart in this cap, but this gave me the gauge. Now, the original Slipover vest is actually in Jamieson's 2-ply, and I don't knit with that. This is Patton's classic worsted. I am really trying to find where I can get this yarn, because Joann is going and all of their good wool is, they're not selling it anymore. Michael's does sometimes have it, so I have to find another supplier for this if I want to keep using it. But I like this. It's good wool. I mean, it's a good standard. Anyway, I had to refigure according to the gauge how many stitches I was going to need for the actual Slipover. So it's a lot of math. I had done a preliminary estimate, and then after doing the cap, I was able to do an actual estimate. When you're swatching for something that is stranded knitting, you really need to make sure you do it exactly the way that you're going to do it. That's why doing it in the round gives a much more accurate measurement for your gauge. So now it is a cap that can be worn. It's great. I love corrugated ribbing. If you remember the blue and white vest that I finished, it was a work in progress from 2019 that I dug out and finished. Anyway, I had used corrugated ribbing. I love it. It's really common in Shetland knitting to see corrugated knitting. Now, the other thing I am going to work on, which I think you can see here, right? There's a jog. So this is where my beginning and ends met up. When I do the actual Crofter's Slipover, I am going to use a jogless technique. There are two techniques I've been looking at, and so I'm going to put both of those linked below so you can watch them and see which one you like best. I should hate saying anyway, I love YouTube. I mean, when I was a kid, it was either go to the library, look in the card catalog, or maybe one of your teachers at school knew how to do it. I was lucky. I had a grandma and a mom, and my middle and oldest sister. We all did some kind of stitch crafts. My brother is a pro at industrial crafts. He can do all sorts of great stuff with welding and such. I suppose if the world were coming to an end, we'd all want to be close to each other so we'd all be able to support a community, but I don't think we could live in the same place. I think, you know, as you become adults, you just have your own way of doing things, so we can only stand each other for so long. I love you, brother and sisters. So that's the cap. Now, the other thing I am working on is a quilt. I'm not going to pick it up and show you the whole thing, and I'm going to link the pattern I use below as the inspiration. This is going to be a gift for one of my oldest son's friends. It is in rainbow colors, and it is Juicy Juice fabric. I happened upon a set of some yardage of old Juicy Juice design, which I absolutely fell in love with, and I still have just a little bit of it left. I think enough to throw into some kind of quilt in the round quilt that I tend to do. But I enjoyed making this. It's got blues, purples, oranges, kind of burnt orange, plum, magenta in it. So I am just now doing the quilting. I'm doing a simple geometric quilt where I'm doing vertical and horizontal, and then there are diagonals because this is pieced together with triangles. So I'm doing the diagonals, and that's it. And then I just have to find some kind of edging. The backing is some fabric I got a long time ago at Joann. It's really cool. It's white with a lot of gold, like splat, like paint splat, and purple and pink like dots and splats. It's like someone took a toothbrush and dipped it into fabric dye and went pew, pew, pew all over it. So I'm enjoying that. Anyway, that's what I'm working on right now. I'm trying a pattern for some felted slippers for my oldest son. The pattern I'm not thrilled with. Just about done with the first actual slipper, and I thought, do I want to do both of them and then felt them, or felt one at a time? I kind of feel like I want to felt the first one and see if it works out right. I don't know. It's with some patterns, a color that I'm not going to use for anything else. So if it ends up not working out, I'm not going to worry so much. It's one of these patterns that I'm glad I didn't pay for it, to be honest with you. Sometimes I look at a pattern, I think this is going to be really good. I go ahead and pay for it, even though most of the time they're $7, which isn't a whole lot, but it adds up over time. I don't ever put negative comments on Ravelry on a pattern that doesn't work. I might send the designer a private message or an email and say, hey, I was doing your pattern. This is what happened. Maybe I did something wrong. I'm not sure. What do you think? And then they can tell me, oh, yes, there's a step missing, or no, you did that part wrong. But I'm not going to go on there and do a review and blast it. I just don't believe in doing that. I will rave about a pattern if I think it's great, and I'll do that publicly. But I learned a long time ago that you praise in public and counsel in private, whether it's now the thing that's different about that with me is that I will counsel in public when it comes to safety and security, which is something, as you know, there's lots of stuff going on right now in our country. And so I've been public about that, but I have suspicions about how my Facebook got hacked. And I know it sounds like I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I was in IT for a long time, and there are reasons why things happen, and they're nothing financial that anybody could have gained from that. So anyway, I've got my suspicions. I'm a little loud on social media when it comes to criticizing what's going on currently. Anywho, I want to get the Crofter's Slipover done, so I'm going to work on that. It's going to be time consuming because it's got to be just right. I've got to follow that chart, and it's got to be just right. Because the colors kind of blend together, you can see there's a black, and the black and white really stands out, but the other colors tend to blend together. It's harder to just kind of follow the stitch pattern, so I really have to follow that. And then do the slippers, finish this quilt. And once the quilt is done, I will start another small quilt. I have tubs and tubs of fabric that I put together in sets so that I can do those quilts. So I've got probably 15 of those that'll last me all year. And then I have other yarn I want to use. I got some Happy Sheep super bulky. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to use that for, but I picked some of that up because it's being discontinued, and I really love the worsted weight of that. That's what I use to make the Lopapesa, the fish sweater, is that, because it mimics Icelandic wool very well. That's being discontinued. So I bought a bunch of that because I plan on doing some of my own yoke designs. Not really sure what those are going to look like, but I'm going to work on that over the next couple of weeks before I start another one. So that's my plan there. Probably won't make any more hats. I think I'm going to use some of the acrylic yarn I acquired. I got some variegated acrylic yarn that I'd used similar yarn a few years ago, all during the pandemic, and made some scarves. So I might do some scarves, maybe some lacy ones, maybe some cowls. I was playing with some cowl designs that inspired me to create some other things. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, my goal in 2025 is to sell enough so that I can purchase a small loom and start learning how to weave. I'd really like to do that. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. But I think making jackets out of hand-woven cloth would be super cool. And I might be able to use some of the yarn I have for that. So you never know. Nothing's ever wasted around here. Having said that, you guys have a great week. I absolutely am committed to doing another video within the next 7 days. I'm not sure what the topic will be. Maybe I'll show you what I completed before I, send things off. Anywho, if you're a crafter, keep crafting. If you're not a crafter and have a hobby, keep doing that hobby. Do something that gives you joy, no matter what it is. And take time for yourself. It's important. Get off of the news, get off of social media, read a book, do your hobby, pick up a hobby if you don't have one. There's a lot of things you can do for fun, whether it's walking outside, bird watching, doing a handcraft, cooking, doesn't matter. And you can do a lot of those things for free or next to nothing. If you don't know how to do it, visit your public library, visit your craft store, find a walking group, bird watching group somewhere. Do something for yourself and enjoy. So until next time, have a great week.